hear some people talking about pressure and that the pressure's getting to you. 4 tenths off pole and 3 tenths off your teammate. Where do you think that time was on the lap?
How much does it hurt to obviously suffer DNF?
The spotlight intensifying on the two McLaren drivers.
Is it the moment to start thinking about the championship?
Max is too close for comfort.
You can't just run away from it or hide from it.
We're certainly on the back foot.
With the pressure of a first championship looming.
Lando box this lap.
Where mistakes creep in.
What's going on with Lando Norris?
He actually has not got away at all.
This is no time to be caught napping.
Wakey, Lando.
As threats reveal themselves from the shadows. A dark horse lurks with intent.
The Astra's going to be hit by Hulkenberg, and the McLaren's made contact. Max Verstappen is miles clear, on his way to 8 points out of the lead of the McLarens. Are we witnessing the comeback of all comebacks? Max Verstappen wins the sprint race in Austin.
Got a bit of work to do, but well done.
Yeah, good race. McLaren will need to find answers.
It seems like we're understanding much more what the car can do and how it needs to be driven.
Many question marks, but it is what it is, and we have to make the most of what we got.
You know, the gap's not being comfortable at any point this year, really.
We have enough potential in the car now to be in the fight on most tracks.
It's positive pressure. We're not stressed about it. We're just going flat out.
Max Verstappen wins the US Grand Prix, and the dream of Title 5 is alive.
Well, that's simply lovely.
And the gap, which was once 104, now stands at just 40 points.
I think it would be a big mistake to think Max wasn't part of this Drivers' Championship right now.
Who can handle the heat?
It's round 20 of the 2025 season. Just 40 points separates our top 3 drivers. And you join us 2,200 metres above sea level for the unique and thrilling challenge of the Mexico City Grand Prix. With 5 race weekends to go, the season is so finely poised. Can one of the McLaren drivers hang on? Or will Max Verstappen complete the greatest comeback in the history of our sport? The first of 5 races in which we will find out. Welcome along to your weekend. Welcome to the Mexico City Grand Prix, to Chris Medland, to Ruth Buscombe. James Hinchcliffe will be joining us. He's currently sitting down with Oscar Piastri, our championship leader, by just 14 points to his teammate Lando Norris in Fora del Sol, just behind us here. So he will be hot-footing it over, hopefully not too quickly, because exercise is difficult here, isn't it? This high up in above sea level, but he'll be joining us soon. Chris, it's so brilliant to be back in Mexico, isn't it? But it does come with its challenges, not just for cars, drivers and presenters.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I mean, the Fora del Sol, when it's full, is going to be incredible. Right now it is empty at the moment. It looks so eerie, actually, when it's like that. But as you mentioned, being at this altitude, yeah, if you wanted to go and like walk the track, you're really feeling it. It takes a while for your body to acclimatise, but it impacts cars as well. It impacts the way the aerodynamics work. You basically run a high downforce setup and you get low downforce results from it. And also the engines and cooling. There's so much that goes into it that can really make it tricky to have a clean weekend, especially from a reliability point of view, which could be crucial given where we are in the season.
Absolutely crucial. Ruth, the championship is so finely poised. You look back in the history of this sport, you can pick out certain years where we've seen similar, but how lucky are we?
It's brilliant. I feel like I'm back at school again, watching 2007 with 2 McLaren drivers and then a speedy young something. Well, I don't think Kimi was that young at the time. Coming back up against the title fight. It isn't over. And, you know, we've seen time and time again in Formula One that the pressure, when it mounts, is where the mistakes creep in. This run of races are one of the most statistically volatile races. We've seen DNFs from the lead. We've seen overtakes. We've seen crashes on lap 1. And nothing is done yet. Nothing is over.
And just 5 races to go. 5 race weekends, I should say, because in 2 of those weekends, we have sprint races as well. That's an extra 8 points available. Let's find out, though, what happened in Austin at the US Grand Prix to get us to where we are now.
It's race day in America. At the front of the field, Lando Norris versus Max Verstappen. The US Grand Prix is underway. Max Verstappen gets the launch off the line that he needs. Leclerc, he's positioned the car well. He's going to get to the inside. He's going to get second position. Off the road, the Mercedes. Carlos Sainz pulling out of the race. Max Verstappen is miles clear. Behrman over the grass and spinning.
obstacles. They can't be. He'll be able to cool them down and get a new lease of life.
He's cooled the tyres, he's attacking once again. Getting to the apex first! Charles Leclerc saw that one coming, still P2.
But he's got to disrupt Leclerc now.
Going to the inside! Lando Norris claiming the position.
Pole position stays on.
What? He's slow.
Max Verstappen wins. The dream of Title 5 is alive.
Simply lovely.
Are we witnessing the comeback of all comebacks? McLaren will need to find answers.
Just absolutely ridiculous. I said in Austin, I think after sprint pole, that I was running out of superlatives for Max Verstappen. I'm clean out now. There's nothing left. He has scored 119 points since the summer break out of a possible 133. He's missed just 14 points. Can we overstate his brilliance?
I'd say no, partly as well. If you say after the summer break, that included Zandvoort. In Zandvoort, they were not in the game at all. That should have been easy. McLaren 1-2. OK, Lando retired, so that got a few more points back for Max. But that Red Bull was nowhere at that point. And then since then, to go on that run is just incredible. And it really will be something that McLaren didn't see coming either. I think Oscar Piastri said similar today. And they know what a threat Max is because he's proven it long before. He has got nothing to lose from this position.
He's scored the same points as Oscar and Lando combined. They'll have known he was a distant threat, Ruth, but now that he is creeping ever closer, potentially the greatest comeback this sport has ever seen, what's going through McLaren drivers' minds?
History repeats itself, has to. No one listens. If you look at the history of Formula One, it's very, very rare that championships are sewn up. Until it's won, it's not won. I remember being in this paddock in 2018 when Sebastian Vettel finally mathematically lost the championship to Lewis. And he was only broken on that day until that very last moment. He didn't believe that he was out of the running. You go back to championships like 2012, 2008, time and time again, they're often defined on the last corner of the last race. So I think McLaren, if they do go on to lose this championship, to not win their first Drivers' Championship since 2008, will take that as a lesson hard won and hard fought.
Yeah, for sure. You feel this is going to go right down to the wire in Abu Dhabi once again, don't you? Let's hear, though, from the guy who is mounting the greatest challenge, potentially the greatest comeback the sport's ever seen, Max Verstappen.
It's clear that we had a good run. Definitely been enjoying it a lot more like that. And of course we'll try to carry that momentum forward. But at the same time, we also know that we need to be perfect till the end to have a chance. But that's fine. I mean, we just try to enjoy, try to do the best we can and maximize it. And then at the end, we'll see where we end up.
Yeah, let's talk realism for a minute because we can spin the narratives and we don't even have to spin that much. It is an incredible story. This sport is in a magnificent place, but Max does have to be pretty perfect. He does rely on a bit of bad luck on the side of the other team as well.
Potentially, but because you've got two drivers there from McLaren, maybe to take points off each other, that does open the door for him to get closer quicker. But you're spot on. Think about 12 months ago here, and it felt like McLaren were coming back. Lando Norris had some momentum with him trying to chase down Max. Certainly in Brazil, after sprint qualifying or even Grand Prix qualifying, you think we're going to have a huge turnaround, and out of nowhere, in a wet race, Max then puts it to bed effectively. McLaren can still do something like that with one good race weekend that's a poor one for Max. So that shows how he really cannot afford to put a foot wrong.
And Ruth, you were saying how volatile this race can prove to be. It may well be so decisive. You also have the prospect of potentially a wet Brazil sprint weekend to come. Let's talk gamesmanship for a minute, though, shall we? Ruth, I'm sure this has happened for years within this sport, but Red Bull were fined at the US Grand Prix. They were fined €50,000 as a team member entered the area around the access gate to the grid after the formation lap had started. Now, reports within the paddock are that was to remove the tape on the wall that Lando Norris was using as a marker to line up on his grid spot. That's not necessarily been stated by either team, but it's the report within the paddock, isn't it, Chris?
Well, yeah, Lando said something in his media session today as well. It's like, yep, that's what they're doing. They've done it before in Monza. He said they find it quite amusing and funny. He says he only uses that bit of tape about 5% of the time. The rest of the time he uses the normal grid slot. But he said now as well, they'd actually reinforced the tape to try and make it harder for Red Bull to take off. He found it really amusing. So it does show, like, McLaren's reaction to me says, like, this is just some of the games that under pressure teams start to do, just trying to almost get in each other's heads.
Yeah, Ruth, talk us through what's happened in the past or things you have seen within teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nothing burger with fries. It's what we do to try and get under each other's skins. It's part of the element of competition. You know, the only rule about sportsmanship, they didn't break. That's Article 12.1.2.m, by the way, in case you're interested. They didn't break that. It was only because they got the sticker off too late that they were fined at all. And it is one of those elements. I've always liked this gamesmanship between the paddock. I've always liked the way, the little jibs that people give each other on there. And that, you know, engineers, we're kind of family. We get on. We don't always like each other, but there's lots of games to do with tyres and leaving them out. And I think in 2021 between Red Bull and Mercedes, there's a famous example of not doing the sportsmanly thing of holding your hoses in the pit box to the side. If they break a rule, they'll get fined for it. They didn't break a rule. Go for it.
So Max Verstappen's won here 5 times before. What are their chances this weekend?
Pretty good, I'd say, but also nowhere near a guarantee. I mean, it's been so hard to predict, hasn't it, race to race, what we're going to get from the top 4 teams. You know, when it's between McLaren and Red Bull, we've seen that fluctuate a little bit, but Red Bull, I think, over the last 4 or 5 races have been the most consistent. But then you've seen Ferrari in the mix, you've seen Mercedes certainly in the mix in Singapore. So I actually spoke to Max earlier where I said, yeah, looking quite good for this weekend, and he was like, cannot call it ahead of time at all. He will not let himself get drawn into those games. He says, we've got to go out, see what we've got on track, and then see what everyone else has got, because it's one thing Red Bull doing a good job, but another thing if any of the other 3 teams do as well.
And Red Bull, Max Verstappen just keeping everything inwardly focused at the moment because they can't control what McLaren are doing. Let's hear what McLaren are thinking ahead of what could be a pivotal weekend.
Lando, good to see you. A couple of pretty productive weekends for you in terms of the championship, gap down to 14 points. What's your feeling arriving here in Mexico? And we also heard Oscar mention earlier that no more repercussions from this point onwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think my last few weekends have all been just decent. I wouldn't say there's been any perfect weekends. A couple where I don't think we would have achieved much more, or could have achieved much more, like last weekend. But otherwise, I think just always giving myself opportunities, always being there or thereabouts. Obviously, Baku probably being the worst one of all of them for both of us. But otherwise, yeah, just some strong weekends. Not incredible, but also just there where I need to be. So good, but it's still 14 points, and we know the others are strong around us. So still a long few 4 or 5 weekends to go.
You're leading, but it is getting closer. The 3 of you now within 40 points. Just how is the looming presence of Lando and Max changing your approach?
It's not, to be honest. I think, you know, obviously the gap has shrunk a little bit in the last few races, but for me, the focus has always been on just trying to go as fast as I can and get the most out of every weekend, which in some of the weekends we have, in some of them we definitely haven't. So that's really all I'm focused on, and you know, I think if I do a good enough job of getting on top of that every weekend, then you know, it doesn't really matter what the picture looks like. And you know, we're starting this weekend with a clean slate for both of us. So yeah, just going out and racing and see who can come out on top.
So no repercussions for either of you. In terms of performance, do you think it's going to be very close between you and Red Bull?
You know, I think clearly over the last few race weekends, you know, Red Bull and Max have certainly found consistency. I think more than anything, you know, there was flashes of that kind of performance earlier in the season, but I think the last few weekends it's been very consistent. So you know, I'm sure that they're going to be a threat again this weekend, and we'll try our best to get the most out of our car and see where we end up.
Oh, fascinating stuff. To get into the minds of these 3 drivers who are all poised to make history in their own way. Max with the 5th, the McLaren boys with the 1st each. James Hinchcliffe, fresh from Estadio, interviewing Oscar Piastri. And I think we're sort of saying this right in front of the hospitality, but I think every F1 fan out there wants to get into the mind of Oscar Piastri to ascertain how he's feeling. What can you tell us? What did you gauge from him?
Well, that's exactly what I was trying to do for the last 15 minutes, chatting to him. And I think the big takeaway from it all is he's Oscar Piastri. You know, he hasn't changed a bit. He's kind of always had this sort of level-headed, mature approach to it all. And despite a few off weekends, he's like, hey, I'm leading the championship. This is the position I want to be in. I'm in a better position than anybody else. He tries to still treat every race weekend as the same. He looks back on any weekend, good, bad, or indifferent, in the same sort of way, processes that information, gets it back from the engineers, applies it to the next week, and he seems like he's in a really good place. So he's right. He's still leading the championship. They've still got to catch him. He's in the best seat in the house.
I love the way that Hinch spent 15 minutes with the driver and worked out that it was indeed the driver he was trying to speak to in that time.
It was him.
The mental fortitude it takes, though, as you've got Max Verstappen bearing down on you, you've endured a teammate battle, you've been out-and-out leader since Jeddah, and suddenly your lead is under such threat. I feel claustrophobic thinking about it. It's why I'm standing here and I'm not in a racing car vying for a title, but I just find it extraordinary psychology to try and get my head around.
And it's interesting, Toto Wolff said earlier this week, and I apologize if I'm repeating anything that's been said already, that he thinks that the driver chasing has a psychological advantage. And I posed that question to Oscar, and he said, not really. I mean, you could maybe be a little bit more flippant with some of your decisions, be a bit braver, but ultimately they're still going out and trying to score maximum points because it is still such a close championship. And remember, this is a driver that has, in his lead up to Formula One, won every championship that he was in consecutive years, some of them incredibly close battles. Is there more on the line in Formula One? Sure. But remember, when you're in F3, you're in F2, from inside your head as a driver, you're fighting for your life. I mean, it is the most important championship you've ever been a part of. So that internal pressure, I think, stays pretty consistent regardless of what the sort of, absolute, importance of the whole thing is.
Well, I think it was his F3 title. He won in very similar circumstances. He was getting hunted down, essentially, and he just got over the line. But he did get over the line, and that is something he can lean on for that experience as well, because it wasn't that long ago. That's something else to remember with Oscar. This is only his third season in F1, so those are actually pretty fresh memories for him, securing those titles in F2 and F3.
Yeah, Oscar was saying it's difficult to predict who's going to go well where, so it's about maximising the potential of every weekend. He didn't typically go that well here last year, Ruth. What can he draw from the learnings there?
Pretty similar to you, Strategist Laura. Once again, you strike again. So on paper, this track favours his two competitors more. First, the turbo efficiency of that Red Bull is very strong here. Max likes to be able to run quite a lot of drag, which you can do here because the penalty is less, because the altitude is lower. And then Lando has had the edge on him in low speed corners. Sector 2 looks like Lando's territory. So on paper, you would rank him third out of 3 based on the form we've seen so far. But the other thing about Mexico is because of these gaps get all compressed, because everything that matters less here. So one mistake from anybody can put you behind.
And interesting, so many drivers actually in the pen today were saying they'd rather be in Oscar Piastri's position than any driver chasing. But Toto Wolff, obviously, with a different psychology. It's just incredible. It's in such a good spot. This is the track which will see one of 5 battles then for the world title. James, you're going to talk us around the track in the best possible way we can see it, and that's a Carlos Sainz pole.
Yeah, on board with your pole sitter from last year. Of course, he led lights to flag for his most recent victory. And this is it. It's this massive run down to turn 1. One of the longest ones from the start line, but also one of the longest ones in general. I say it all the time. You hate to give drivers time to think. About 150 meters up from the highest top speeds we see all year. Big compromise section through this first one. You can't take too much track on the exit of 1 to set up for 2. Tons of curb in turn 3. We sometimes see track limits violations on the inside because they're hitting the curb so much. Down into this 4-5 chicane, tons of action down here in the race last year. Again, just down to 70 miles an hour. You barely even get full throttle before you're on the brakes for 6 and 7. Very low speed, very slippery offline, and then into this very fast S's section. Of course, this is where we saw that drama with Lando Norris and Max Verstappen flat out through this section, then down on the brakes, 4, 11, or 10 rather, sorry, then through 11, flat out, and you start this next stretch down. This, we see some of the bumps through that SS section. That's what's going to limit the ride heights here. Turn 12, passing opportunity, so easy to get it wrong. We see a lot of drivers going wide there, and then the slowest part of the racetrack, just 66 miles an hour, fighting to get that throttle down before you then line up for the Peraltada. Incredibly important to get the big run out of here, staying tight to limit track distance, and it was just enough on the day for him to get that pole position And that's one that I know he's excited to be back here because of how well it went last year.
Yeah, converting that to victory for Carlos Sainz and Ferrari. Ferrari's last win as well. Ruth, strategy-wise, it was a one-stop last year. Pirelli have once again brought a step-in compound like they did in Austin, like they did in Belgium. What does this all mean? What does it mean in terms of the track? Give us the strategy lowdown.
Well, Carlos did win last year on a managed medium-hard one-stop strategy. But to understand strategy here, you've got to understand the circuit itself. Altitude dominates everything. We're at 2.2 kilometers in the air. It's equivalent of 3 Burj Khalifas, I've been informed by producer Joe. And that means we lose 20% of our aerodynamic efficiency and 10% of our engine efficiency. Well, what does that mean? That a track that looks, with all those 3 glorious DRS overtaking zones, would be an overtaking bonanza, isn't at all. Track position is key, and so is that long run to turn 1, 830 meters. It is the longest run of the year. In fact, often P2 or P3 with the slipstream at the start, and the start tyre is absolutely critical here. So going into this race, in terms of the actual energy that's going into the tyres, it's very low. It's actually quite low energy, but right up there, top speed, number 1, faster than the temporal speed of Monza with Monaco rear wings, because efficiency, just like mine when I go for my morning run here, is absolutely nothing. And that leads to a really interesting challenge for both the drivers, the cars, and the power units themselves, where they are huffing and puffing. We've had Daniel Ricciardo 2018 here. His Renault power unit gave up the ghost. And even when you look at the temperatures, they're misleading because of the altitude. Although it looks like it's a lovely 26 ambient, a rather pink James Hinchcliffe will demo that the UV is very, very high, because actually it's because, a bit like when you go skiing, the track temperature is raging up at 50 degrees, and it'll be like that all day. So bring your sun cream and bring your good power unit. And in terms of the actual tyres this race weekend, C2, C4 with the jump, and the C5. So coming off the back of Austin, you go, is it going to either be a medium hard one stop, or are they going to manage and try and start on that C5 tyre in order to be able to get that jump off the line? I think that's going to be the main question here. The undercut can work, but with low degs, the overcut works better. There's a very high chance of virtual safety cars here as well that drop that loss down to 12 seconds. So I think most cars will be thinking about how far can I go on a medium tyre, extend into the race and give me flexibility whether or not I want to go on that C2 tyre. How slow is it? We didn't have it last year. We had the C3. And how long can a soft go? I think that's pretty much it.
That's amazing stuff. Thank you so much, Ruth. Brilliant. I wasn't going to mention James's sunburn, but should we get into it? James, you probably underestimated the sun yesterday. Is that fair to say?
Sure did, Laura. Sure did. And I'm paying for it today, and I'm going to be paying for it all weekend long, I feel, because, again, we spend a lot of time standing outside in the sun.
We do.
Unfortunately, you're not standing facing directly into the sun to talk to Laura right now.
Yeah, that'd be an unfortunate.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate.
Yeah, you're not on camera.
What a shame.
Lots of people at home to see you there.
Plenty of sunscreen on now. We're in much better shape. Don't yell at me, Becky. I'm sorry. I know better.
We are making sure James Hinchcliffe has his sun cream on. Don't you worry. Let's hear from Charles Leclerc of Ferrari.
So Charles, your first podium since Belgium last time out. How much confidence are you taking from that result arriving here in Mexico?
It's been a good result, but it's not like from now on I know that we've got the potential to be on the podium. I think we need to be careful. It's been a perfect weekend. I think we perfectly executed Sunday's race and also the qualifying. However, we know that McLaren and Red Bull are much stronger than us for now. Mercedes can be much stronger or a bit weaker than us, but it depends. It varies a little bit more for them. So yeah, it doesn't mean much for the rest of the season, but it's good to be back on the podium. It's been a long time, and that's good for I think everybody in the team to finally see a little bit of improvements.
Thanks, John.
Well, a podium in Austin last time out, and of course a Ferrari win and the last one yet. James Hinchcliffe is refusing now to even look at the camera.
Oh, sorry. I was just a second out of the sun I was going for. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
He's back in the room with us. I was saying, Ferrari, is this, I'll get an answer from each of you on this, their best chance to win a race in 2025?
Maybe. I just, it's so tough to tell. I mean, they were talking about it earlier with how competitive it is. All these tracks that you used to be able to circle as, this is a Red Bull track, this is a Ferrari track, this is a McLaren track. It's not that clear cut anymore. You think back to Austin, they were pretty much nowhere on Friday, changes overnight, very much in the race on Saturday and Sunday, but Charles Leclerc even said, we're not entirely sure why. So you look at last year, yes, front row, first and third in the race, it should be their best shot to win. But how many times have we seen Mercedes pop up with unexplained pace? This has been a Red Bull track for a long time, and Max is on a great streak. So is it their best chance? Maybe, but that doesn't really guarantee anything here.
Either way, they've got Hinch's support this weekend.
Yes, I'm definitely.
But I'd agree, actually. I think it's one of those where we would have said it previously, but as Max has pointed out, there's too many fluctuations now. The cars have changed too much, even compared to last year. You see how disappointed Charles was after Hungary, that he felt that was his chance? Totally different racetrack compared to here. So I actually think we're going to see maybe a different race out of nowhere where Ferrari might have a better chance. But I'd say good signs from Austin. The fact that they found a way of really turning that car around and being competitive by the end of the weekend, they can build on that, certainly not just here, but across the final 5 rounds.
Ruth, the boys have said quite a lot there. Do you have anything to add, bar yes or no?
No, I don't think they're going to win it.
Okay, there we go. You heard it from Ruth Buscombe. Let's hear then from George Russell, who, to his credit, is actually the 4th driver still mathematically in with the chance of winning the 2025 title.
George, great to see you. A 2-part question for you. You mentioned the fine margins last time out in Austin. How confident are you that you'll be on the right side of those this weekend? And also, everyone's talking about Lando, Oscar, Max, but you're the other driver who's remained in title contention so far this season. Yes, you are still. So how proud does that make you, the season you put together, everything so far?
I mean, it's been a solid season. I don't think I'm going to say I'm proud to be P4, but I'm proud that every race we're getting sort of the maximum result possible most weekends out. Last weekend we didn't, so I left Austin feeling a bit disappointed. And how confident are we that we can be on the right side of those fine margins? I mean, you can never be, because it is literally, last weekend there was 20 milliseconds between P2 and P4, and that probably was the difference between a podium and not on the podium. So you just know, come Q3, come the race start, you need to really bring your A game if you want to step on the podium.
I love that George didn't even quite realise that he was still in with a shot. And look, he has had an incredibly strong season, hasn't he? You can actually play along with George Russell in F1 Fantasy as well. Join Russell's rivals, the F1 Fantasy Mini League that starts here in Mexico, and it's running through to Vegas as well. You can play for exclusive Mercedes prizes, including a pair of Russell's signed race boots, and you can join even if you've not played F1 Fantasy all season long. Mercedes then, where do we think they may feature this weekend, Ruth?
It's difficult too. We just saw George nearly crash our show there, going off for a run around this track, which gives me the reasoning that they're confident, because this is a tough track, and if you're even a little bit feeling under the weather, you do not want to be running around here. Obviously, we had those illnesses the last couple of weekends before Austin. I think it's going to be a case of marginal gains. They're going to have to try and take up what it is. On paper, you would probably put them slightly slower than the Ferrari, but then power unit really comes into play here. And the Mercedes power unit, reliability has been a little bit of a concern. So yeah, too tough to call, I think.
Yeah, it feels that way, that it's so tough to call regardless, says George Russell. Actually there, leaving the garage once again. Still looking fresh. I'm not sure he's been for his run.
Yeah, he was kidding us there, wasn't he? He wanted to crash it so it looked like he was running, and then he didn't actually run. He's walking out.
He's looking very relaxed, is George Russell. Other side of the garage, Kimi Antonelli, Hinch. How much confidence do you think he will have had as a boost from his contract news, but a bit of a mixed bag at the US Grand Prix?
I mean, I think pace-wise, he was actually all right at USGP. Results-wise, it went south. Obviously, he had that incident on lap 1, put him back. Decent drive back up through the field. Always a tough one for rookies. I'm trying to remember, did he do FP1 here last year? Has he driven here in a Formula 1 car? I can't remember.
That's a good question.
I'm not sure.
His only FP1 would have been the Monza FP1.
Was it just, yeah, so...
Correct us in the comments if we're wrong.
There you go. But brand new place for him. It's a tough place to learn because it is so low grip. You want it to be higher grip. You've got this big wing on it. So it is tough, and it's massive track evolution as well because it's not used very much. So it's a tough one to get his head around. But at the same time, I think like we've seen all season, if the Mercedes package is strong, I think Kimi's going to step up and he'll be, thereabouts with George.
We saw, sorry, I'm hearing in my ear, he did do FP1 here.
So he's been around here. So
there you go.
That's a positive.
Kimi knows his track. And we're going to see a number of rookies in action. We'll come to that long list in just a moment. Onto a driver who had, again, very mixed fortunes in the US. Carlos Sainz, P3 in the sprint race, but then biffed out of the Grand Prix itself. and has taken a 5-place grid penalty. Chris, he's not altogether pleased about it, is he?
He's not, but I kind of see what else can you do in terms of that one. He hit Kimi, as we mentioned. It took Kimi out of that race. It was a close racing incident, but he was on the wrong side of it, and he was then out the race himself too, Carlos. So you can't penalise him that weekend. It's going to carry over. It's at some point you have to draw that line. 5-place grid penalty will hurt, but I think he could just be encouraged by the form he's been showing. He really has been finding his feet, and he hadn't been getting the results within the Williams in the first parts of the year, but certainly since the summer break, you've really seen it start to come his way a little bit. So as much as he's on the back foot now, we've seen weekends turn around so quickly all year. That doesn't mean that he's out the running to score some points here.
No, Williams are on a brilliant run of form, trying to cement P5 in the championship. Towards the back of the field, of course, we have Alpine, P10 in the constructor standings, and team orders, the two buzzwords for that team following the US Grand Prix. Franco Colapinto told to hold position. He chose to overtake Pierre Gasly. The news coming out afterwards, of course, was that team orders are final and should have been adhered to, and Franco himself put out a statement saying, I know now team orders are to be followed. Our very own Jolyon Palmer was saying that he didn't quite see the need for the team orders because it was P17, P18. It wasn't for the points. He wanted to see a bit of a fight. Ruth, how often do we see this kind of team order controversy happen?
Yeah, I mean, it is a strange one to have team orders for that far back. Typically we would enact them if you're even a little bit close to the points. P11, P12, P13, in case there's a double DNF right at the very front, then it matters, even when you're running in a midfield team out of the car. Interesting one. And, going into this race weekend, I think it's going to be a tough one for the team, given, we've spoken a bit about the power unit, and that Renault power unit has kind of blighted them kind of all year in terms of performance when we go to the power-sensitive tracks. I think they're going to be wanting to get to Brazil, to be honest.
Yeah, that's very much the impression I got from Pierre Gasly earlier on. And look, Franco is very much fighting for his own future as well, and so looking to get whatever moves done he can. Alrighty, let's head then to the weekend schedule to see how things line up here in Mexico City. Okay, free practice one then, coming to you at 12:15 for the first hour of running. FP2 on air at 3:45. FP3 coming to you at 11:15. And then you have a 2:30 for your pre-qualifying show. The fight for pole from 3 p.m. All the reaction in the post-qualifying show just afterwards. And then on to Sunday, the pre-race show at 1 p.m. and the Grand Prix itself starting at 2 p.m. That's here, track time in Mexico and wherever you are in the world. The post-race show, as ever, with all of the reaction. Now, FP1 is going to look a little bit different. We're going to see a number of drivers sitting out and a number of drivers coming in, those who you may not be quite so used to. We're going to have Pato O'Ward, Antonio Fiocco, Arvid Lindblad, Fred Vesti, Jack Crawford, Paul Aaron, Ryo Hirakawa, Ayumu Iwasa, and Luke Browning. I mean, brilliant opportunity for those drivers, Hinch, but of course they do have to play the team game. They can't get out there and let it rip, as I'm sure you wanted to in the Haas car when you tested it. They've got to go through the motions.
I think what is so important for these young drivers to remember, and they've all been told this, it's not about going fast, it's about completing the plan the team sets out for them. I remember speaking to AO from Haas about what was the moment you really knew Ollie Behrman was going to be, a part of this team? When did you know he was the guy? And he said FP1 in Mexico, his first FP1, because he was so diligent in completing the program. He wasn't being selfish. He wasn't looking for his own personal goals here. He knew he had a job to do, and he executed it beautifully. And look where he is now. So that's a great lesson for all these young drivers. We've seen, unfortunately, mechanical issues happen on some of these guys' cars in the past when they've got their FP1s. I hate seeing that for them. But what it's really about for these drivers is I hate to say it this way, but doing what you're told and following the program.
I can't believe that Hinch didn't get the nod from Haas after his appearance in Medland. But you could have got a knock on the door at Sauber, because they're not putting someone in for FP1, but that's because they've completed their allocation. They've had all 4 rookies run already.
Few super license points short, I was told.
We'll have some words.
Next time.
Ollie Behrman, of course, 2 points away from a race ban, but he does get a bit of a reset in Brazil with some of those points coming off. So I will see if he'll change the way he is driving for this weekend to keep it a bit cleaner.
Did he enjoy that question from you earlier today?
He absolutely fobbed it off, batted it straight back with no barely an indication that I'd even asked the question, which he'd been incredibly well media briefed for that one. Final thoughts then, please, heading into what could be one of 5 pivotal weekends in this potentially historic title fight. James.
Yeah, I'm just so excited to see the competitive order, because I think we have an idea, but we've seen that get tossed on its head in the last few weekends. So I'm just excited to see Ken Max keep it going. Do McLaren bounce back and have a strong weekend and really eliminate him from the conversation? We just don't know.
Prediction?
Based on what I just said, it's impossible. Okay, I want to mix it up. I want to see. Look, I want this battle to go further and be tighter. So I want Max to win just because of that. I think McLaren's going to bounce back and they'll have one on the podium. And let's throw a Ferrari up there as well. Let's say Lewis. Let's go Lewis.
So
We've got to have that Ferrari podium for Lewis before the season's out.
Fabulous. Chris.
Somebody clip that up, because he's either going to look like an absolute genius or
he was
something
so
else.
close last week. I don't know.
He was there in the mix. I'm really keen to see actually how Oscar Piastri bounces back from the US, because partly one of the things Andrea Stella said is that Oscar was maybe lacking a little bit when you've really got to lean on the car in low grip conditions. This is a low grip conditioned circuit, so this is a place where he's going to have to take learnings from last week, whatever he's done during this week as well, and then go and put it on track tomorrow. And I think that will be something that will be really telling in terms of the way he's approaching everything.
Ruth.
Yeah, I think it's a Max win to make it 6 wins around this track. I think Lando second. Third, I think it's going to be quite hard fought between Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, but Oscar nipping through at the end to fill out my favourite podium of the year here in Estadio. Absolutely stunning view.
It's incredible, isn't it? Fabulous. Thank you, guys. This is shaping up to be a brilliant weekend. They are the thoughts in your weekend warm-up. Do not miss a second of the Mexico City Grand Prix right here. See you then.
From the heart of Mexico City, this is Formula One. We leave the line for the Mexican Grand Prix. The battle to turn 1 begins. He's made contact into the first corner. That's the lead for Carlos Sainz. This arena creates an atmosphere worthy of a truly great circuit. I tell you what, Lando Norris is absolutely flying. Max Verstappen barges Norris off the road.
I just have to avoid a crash.
Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz wins the Mexico City Grand Prix. The sight and the sound of this crowd acclaiming their winner.
Masterclass, Carlos. Gracias, México.